It's now been a few days since Dante did release on all servers for Star Rail. I've already used him previously a lot to get my opinion on this, but I have used him quite some more when he did release. Testing him on different teams, obviously ones that scale with attack, because on HP scalers, you wouldn't want to use him anyways. And so today I'm here with my first impressions. Before I get into the video, be sure to check the description to join the Discord server, where you can talk about anything you want, Star Rail or not Star Rail related. There's a Genshin and Arc and stuff channel, general channel for anything else, and let's get straight into the video. So leading up to Dawning's beta, obviously first was the drip market, and I was super excited. Dawning isn't like my favorite character. He used to be, funny enough, so funny bit of lore about me. Very early on in the game, Dawning actually was my favorite character. But I was still excited. I was a little bit disappointed in his design because it really just felt like the 4-star slapped on with horns and made taller. So I wasn't like digging design, but the 4-star design is so peaked to the point that it carried the 5-star design, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wish they did more, but you know, I kind of see why they didn't anyways. It was funny, for this drip market, he got the better splash out while Evernight got the better design. Funny little split that happened there. But yeah, he was also going to be finally a new preservation. We haven't gotten one since Aventurian. And I was like, oh my god, there is going to be another shielder. And obviously as he introduces himself as like the protector of the Trailblaze, the one who will guard the journey, it was very obvious he was going to be a sustain and also a shielder. And that was going to be great news for the player base when it came to playable units wise, because shields, while it is really good, it has been falling off a little bit. Just because the HP meta is so prevalent, but as we are going to be shying away from the HP meta soon with 4.x, shields are probably going to be a lot more prominent, except the fact that Hyacinth does like 1,000,000 damage every 2 seconds. But yeah, shields are probably going to end up being a lot more prominent later on. Aventurian still was able to shield relatively well, and especially thanks to the new set that was made for Dawning, obviously Aventurian's shield became a lot stronger as well. But of course, as Aventurian is now quite an old unit in these days' standards, his kit was more outdated. He wasn't used on many teams beside, you know, his follow-up niche. And I'm, again, not saying that he can't be used anywhere. Trust me, Aventurian is my favorite character. You guys know how much I've invested in him. I use them so much, and I still do. But I can admit that when it came to lower level and even higher level Eidolons, the whole idea of a sustain that can do damage was falling off with him by a lot, because his damage back then, yes, was really good for a sustain. But now we got characters like Hyacinth who kind of just set a new bar. And if you were made as a sustain before that, of course, you do not have that bar. So either you have a character that supports a lot for a sustain, or one that does good damage. Huohuo and Dawning fall into more buffing capabilities, while Hyacinth sets the standard for damage. Aventurian, he's kind of just in the middle, left to rot. But yes, finally a new shielder that people are going to get their hands on, which we're definitely going to help. So then the beta cycle comes out, and he had very good news for him at being a very solid kit overall, even in V1. He did also have that really fun mechanic, which by all means was not optimal. I really don't care that he removed it, but it was still fun, where you're able to trigger effects such as the tutorial mission light cone on Noxa's actual weakness implant. And there was a lot of funny interactions you could do, which also made him a really fun sustain. But of course, later on, I think what happened was they changed it to additional damage, which ended up completely ruining the wording of how it worked and how it actually did work, which ended up removing the synergy, so you can no longer do the funny Anoxa weakness implant, you can do the funny Kafka tutorial mission energy. And also, I think the dot procs also worked there as well. There was more stuff that I can't remember on the top of my head, but those were the biggest 2 outliers. So unfortunately, later on, it did get removed. But even from start to finish, he actually was a very solid character. His sustaining capabilities were good. Depending on who you buff, the Bondmaid and the Soul Dragon can actually do solid damage. He himself obviously does really bad damage. They mainly focus on the supportive capabilities and the big beefing of his shield. His shield was insanely strong, practically what you can expect for a shielder made in 3.x, where of course he's able to tank practically every single hit from the end games. Mine that you're seeing in the background is not a good example. He's level 6 traces and he doesn't even have the shield set. He's also running an S2 Battle Pass Lycone, which isn't really the problem. But yeah, because he doesn't have the shield set and he also has level 6 talents, he is not going to be providing a bigger shield. If I actually had him at level 10 traces and I also had the shield effect, all those attacks you see that break my shield, they would not be breaking. That's how strong he was. He was able to do that in V1. He was able to do that in V5. He was really strong throughout this entire beta cycle. And he was going to be the next best shielder role character. And of course, that's not like a big competition, as Aventurian was really the only shielder. So going throughout the beta cycles, he did receive changes, but I don't know what it is, but I just cannot remember them for the life of me. So I'm mainly going to talk about his like finalized kit and such. So his attack buff was also really good. It was very obvious they mainly made him for, of course, Anoxa and Finon. That's where he works best. Since especially with Finon, he can actually provide shield within Finon's ultimate because the Soul Dragon is now Finon summoned, so it takes it into the ult with him. So enhanced or not, you're able to get shields, which can help you tank even more hits. A really well-built Heng will be able to sustain the ult Finon a lot. Let's say maybe your Finon isn't on the stronger side and he takes a lot of hits and you're going into a harder endgame. If you run into the issue of dying in your Finon ult, Heng definitely does help mitigate that more because he is able to provide the shield in his ultimate and is able to refresh it. So the fact he's able to do that for Finon is really good. For Anoxa, he is really damn good because of that attack buff. And he can also be a skill point generator in some way, shape, or form, since you don't have to skill with him. But he also is going to be helping fixing Anoxa's deprived attack stats, so combine that with someone like Saridra and or Robin. You are able to give Anoxa a lot of attack to also make him do a lot of good damage while also sustaining. And Heng's early investment options are all really good. His E1 gives a skill point and also gives a whopping 18% alt-type respan, which is going to be universally loved no matter where you use him. On the Dot team, on the Finon team, on the Aglia team, they are all going to love it. His S1 increases his attack by a god load amount, and it's a 5-star, like also good base attack, so it gives him a really high attack stat. Gives an emergency heal, gives more supportive capabilities in the form of increasing damage. Also a very solid option, and his E2 is just Jesus Christ. The uptime you have on Soul Dragon Enhance is insane because it doubles. Instead of 2, it is now 4. You're able to advance the Soul Dragon's action. The shield effect is increased, so from unbreaking to actually just unscalable. And the additional damage dealt by Bondmate does also increase by double. Or, well, it goes up to 200% of the original damage, I mean. So that also additional damage is going to do significantly more. So that E2 is also just absolutely bonkers. So his early investment options making him that much better as a character who's already insanely good at E0 as 0 was insane. And to top it all off, they gave him out for free. I think when they give out DPSs, it's great. Like, they released Ratio, who was really damn strong for the longest time. They released Emiya, who is still, like, the best single-target character in the game. And he's also just insanely strong. But I do think giving out a sustain, like Heng, who is technically one of the best sustainers, not technically, he is one of the best sustainers. The only one that really contests him is, of course, Hyacinth, is a lot better because this actually caters to all players more than a DPS would. A lot of people will struggle more on the sustain side because they see a lot of like, oh, sustain this run, and they try it and they die. A sustain run can be like the reason they can't clear it because they just don't have enough damage. And maybe they also have weaker side sustains. Like Gallagher, while he's still good, of course, a lot of times it's going to be like the difference of running him or not can be the reason you clear or not as well. So releasing a sustain like Heng, who has absolutely no problems to sustain your team while also buffing your main DPS's damage, I think is absolutely perfect for a free unit, because now newer players have a character that's a pseudo buffer and a sustain to keep them alive throughout all content. Mid-ground players, so the ones that maybe have completed story but they're still working their way to endgame, have this sustain that can help a lot with their DPS. And endgame players who either struggle or not have a new unit that can buff their main DPS to be the reason they clear for longer and sustain their team for longer. Or straight up be the reason they're finally able to clear the endgame, because now they don't have to worry about dying with a previous sustain they had, or if they were forced to run sustainless to do enough damage. Now that Heng also does buff damage, has the additional damage that can do some solid damage as well, and sustain your team completely fine, these people in those situations end up getting a character that's going to help them a lot. Especially now with Anomaly releasing and needing a strong sustain for most players, as again, most people cannot do sustainless. He is really good, and I think they couldn't have picked a better time to release him right after the brand new endgame was released. Of course, there was the first half with Evernight, and then Heng came out, and the Anomaly mode came out at the beginning with Evernight. So technically, if they swapped Evernight and Heng, then yeah, it could have been more perfect, but still, perfect timing. They picked a perfect time to give him out, and they also made him insanely strong, and to top it all off, made him free, and I think a sustain of this caliber is definitely one of the best options we could have gotten for a free unit. Yes, again, DPSs are great to get. They can help carry early game players, they can be strong enough to help end game players to clear as well, but a sustain is a lot more well-rounded and a lot more desired. And with all the things that Heng could do, I really do not think they could have picked a better character in 3.x to give up for free, except Hyacinth, obviously, because, you know, that, but they were not going to do that. That character is just a little too stupid to give up for free. But yeah, I think Dawning was really, really one of the best characters they can give to all players for free. Of course, that can depend on your account. Like, for me, if they really wanted to give me a free unit, it would definitely be a DPS, or shite, even an Eidolon. But I think overall value, I think the Sustain and Dawning specifically was going to be the best for that slot. Because now everyone has the Sustain who is insanely broken, who's able to sustain your team completely fine, especially when well built. Well built will make it to where shield is just unbreakable. Buffing capabilities are insanely good for two of the strongest DPSs in the game, being Anoxa and Phynon. It's also great on dot teams, which dot teams are really common. So him being able to be on their team as well, just giving bond mate to Hyacinth, buffing her attack as well to make her do more damage, as she is the primary DPS anyways. That's also great. You can use it with Aglia since the shield refreshes enough to stay up with Aglia. You can even use them with someone like Phase Shout. Like, he really could just go on any character that scales with attack that doesn't want to lose HP, like an HP drainer, like Blade, Evernight, or Castris. And so my first impressions after using them on all these sorts of teams, Phase Shout team, use them with Dot team, Final team, Anoxa team, Emiya team, Saber team, so on. I really do think he is insanely good. He is definitely up there sustain wise when it comes to Hyacinth. I do think Hyacinth has better value because Hyacinth is Hyacinth. That character should not be real in the first place. But of course, he still hovers that tier. He is just insanely strong. Buffing capabilities are great for these characters, and I definitely do think him being free was the cherry on top. So first impressions, I am very satisfied. The only downside for me is I am a very, very advent sustainless player. So I myself don't really have use for Dawning. He's not going to replace sustainless runs as a third support. Unfortunately, in those slots, mostly always is going to be better as a third support, especially when characters like Tribi exist. So I'm not going to use him too much, but I have tested him enough to have my first impressions, as you can tell, and I am very, very, very satisfied at his performance. I've seen many people who have struggled to finally clear with Dawning. I've seen people that are able to use their favorite DPSs again because of Dawning. He is just a very, very well-made character, a very, very strong-made character, and a fantastic free unit to give out. And that does bring this video to a close. My Dawning first impressions, again, very satisfied. Let me know if you summoned and what investment level you ended up going for. Most people probably went for E1 at least because it is just a really strong dupe. If you did find this video helpful or even enjoyable, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the button for future videos like this along with all the types of Star Wars content. Remember to join the Discord. I'm going to go back and slave away at Pokemon ZA so I can get that damn shiny charm with 1,000 battles. Why is that 1,000 battles? Someone please make it make sense. If you know, you know. Anyway, see ya.